Welcome to the First Alert Summer Weather Outlook, where the KMOV First Alert Weather Team will get you prepared for the St. Louis summer weather headed our way. You'll learn about the dangers of heat and humidity and the science behind heat waves. We'll look back at the historic floods of the summer of '93 and the floods of just last summer, and discuss how flash flooding happens and how to stay safe. Plus, a complete weather outlook for summer 2023 and what you can expect. Stay tuned for the First Alert Summer Weather Outlook. Brought to you by Ameren.
Beautiful Forest Park, built in 1876, bigger than Central Park, and built for world recognition. It is a jewel of St. Louis, and it is here where so many of us will spend time this summer. Welcome to the First Alert Weather Team's Summer Outlook. I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. St. Louis summer weather can be wild. We can experience summer lows in the cool 50s on up to triple-digit heat from June to late August. And these temps can change quickly. So many welcome summer with open arms, but no matter your love for warmth, that first heat wave can hit all of us so hard. We're just not acclimated to it. First Alert meteorologist Leah Hill explains how the summer heat is getting worse and what you can do to protect yourself.
You know when that hot heat, you got attitude, you can't function, you can't think right, everybody needs to get out the way.
That's how LaPortia Miner describes how heat waves make her feel. But how would you define one?
Bipolar, because 1 minute is up, next minute is down.
Lowest of like 80, maybe up to the hundreds or higher.
From cold, nice weather all the way to 80, 90 degrees in one day.
These definitions of heat waves differ. Jason Goslin, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service in St. Louis, says,
So there's no official definition of a heat wave in the meteorological community.
Why aren't heat waves defined? That's because a heat wave is different for every area. Heat waves can also be hot and dry, or hot and humid.
During the summer, the jet stream, which is what drives our weather, that is up to the north, so we don't get a whole lot of storms. And additionally, high pressure develops, and it causes sinking air. Again, preventing storms. What is also happening is that we get the surface heating, and it isn't enough heating to overcome that sinking motion from the high pressure. So instead of storms, we get this dome of heat developing overhead, and that's why we have our summer heat waves. It can be very hard to break this pattern of that heat dome. What we need is a strong cold front. But what we're seeing now is that the heat is staying longer.
Goslin says that St. Louis is recording 5 to 10 more 90-degree days compared to 50 years ago. But the most notable change is the lack of cooling at night.
The main difference we see, if you look back at the 50s, 60s, 70s, is we're seeing a lot more of those warm overnight lows.
Warmer overnight lows give our bodies less time to recover from daytime heat, increasing the risk for heat-related illnesses.
When you're outdoors during high temperature days, that you do limit your activity and take breaks frequently, because those effects do add up. So you want to cool off as often as can.
Headaches, muscle cramps, thirstiness are early signs that your body is stressed from the heat. Heavy sweating, clammy skin, weak pulse, nausea, or vomiting are some of the signs of heat exhaustion. Seek medical help if symptoms last more than an hour. A heat stroke is a medical emergency.
Confusion, you might be unconscious, you're going to have an extremely high body temperature, 103 degrees or higher, and there won't be any sweating. You'll have hot, dry, clammy skin.
If you see someone suffering from heat stroke, call for help and try to cool them down.
But you want to keep their skin damp, and you want to cool them down as rapidly as possible.
Watch out for your children and pets too. Never leave them in a hot vehicle. Leah Hill, News 4.
The bandstand, the boathouse, the Muni, all popular spots during the summer. And the Muni Theater, it opens in the summer and can get packed right when it can be downright hot and humid. For you, the audience, big fans installed in recent seasons make a big difference. They're kept on during the performance, as opposed to the old fans first installed in the 50s. Those were used to provide a welcome breeze during intermissions. Actors wear special light fabrics, they hydrate during performances, and get cooling towels. We know that many in our community need help staying cool when the heat ramps up. That's where Cool Down St. Louis comes in. For the better part of 2 decades, the organization has been helping the bi-state keep our most vulnerable safe, giving a safety net to keep them cool and utilities connected.
We'll find people who are in their homes by themselves And they've passed because of the heat, because nobody checked on them. And being a good neighbor, all it takes is a knock on the door. Run the AC. If you're worried about the bill, call CoolDownSt.Louis.org.
Visit Cool Down St. Louis's website, and if you're able to, make a donation. The second leading weather-related killer in this country is ironically perhaps the easiest to avoid. Even in summer, we have to worry about flash flooding. Its fury is often underestimated. And First Alert meteorologist Matt Chambers takes us back to last summer's historic flash flood and reveals the common mistake that puts people in harm's way.
This is my car.
10.78 inches. That is our average summer rainfall in St. Louis. Now, in a perfect world, this would be spread out evenly over the months of June, July, and August, but we don't live in a perfect world. On July 26th of 2022, historic flash flooding dumped an entire summer's worth of rain in just 8 hours.
News 4 is in storm mode.
Inches upon inches of heavy rain.
In the wee hours of that morning last summer, while most of the bi-state was sleeping, the National Weather Service office in St. Louis did something they've never done before. They declared a flash flood emergency. I went to that office myself to find out exactly what goes into such a critical decision.
The flash flood emergency is almost never used because we hold that as the worst case scenario.
Meteorologist Matt Beitcher says a decision that monumental never falls on the shoulders of just one person.
It's a group decision. It's not just the person issuing the warning. The entire office gets in on the conversation and says, is this right to make sure that we are saving people's lives and that we are alerting them properly? This is a particularly dangerous and life-threatening situation. We don't use those strong words unless we mean it.
Lambert St. Louis International Airport measured a record-shattering 9.04 inches of rain during that event, and 7.5 of those inches fell in just 6 hours. That is an event so extreme that it has statistically a less than 1 in 1,000 chance of happening in any given year.
By any metric that you pick, it was the most impactful flash flood event that St. Louis has ever seen.
The meteorological setup was ideal for heavy rain, and that pattern was, simply put, stuck.
So you can see these reds and yellows just continuing to hit North St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles, one after another and after another.
But a flash flood doesn't have to be record-breaking to put people's lives in danger.
You only need about a foot of water that's rapidly moving to sweep away a sedan, and 1.5 to 2 feet to knock over an SUV and have it turned into a rubber duck that's floating down the street.
Here's the good news. Protecting yourself is relatively simple. First, have multiple reliable ways to receive watch and warning information. The KMOV weather app will keep you up to date.
From the National Weather Service Forecast Office.
NOAA weather radios are a great source of information too. But most importantly, remember the golden rule of flood safety.
Don't drive over flooded roadways. We say turn around, don't drown all the time.
Highway 141 at Interstate 44, notorious for flooding, right? But here's what you have to understand. More than half of all flash flood deaths occur when vehicles drive into floodwaters. Tragically, we saw this in our own community just last July. During that historic flash flood, 2 people died. One man drowned in his vehicle, another drowned as he was trying to flee his truck. So the next time you ask yourself, can I make it through these floodwaters? Ask yourself this, is it worth my life?
3 decades removed from a period that St. Louis will forever be scarred by. When we come back, the Great Flood of 1993, how it happened, how we've recovered, and what we've learned. And then we head to the yard. St. Louis loves its gardening, and even if you don't have a green thumb, we'll help you with summer planting. Before we head to break, let's get into some weather trivia. Heat lightning is a special type of lightning. True or false? We'll have the answer after the break. You deserve to be first. First to know when you're going to need a little extra protection, or something to keep you dry, or extra time in the morning, or when you need to run for these. Hey, if weather's going to mess up your day,
watch News 4 and you'll be first with First Alert Weather. First for you.
All day, every day.
First Alert Weather.
Steve Templeton and the First Alert Weather Team.
Yeah, we're watching out for you. Welcome back. Our weather trivia before the break asked you if heat lightning is a special type of lightning. The answer, false. Heat lightning is just ordinary lightning. However, it is so far away, you don't hear any thunder. It's been considered the most costly and devastating flood to ravage the U.S. in modern history. And much of it happened right here in St. Louis. You can't talk about our region's history without mentioning the Great Flood of 1993. First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart revisits the disaster and shows us just how it happened.
We're here on the banks of the Mississippi in downtown St. Louis. At this time, the Mississippi is at its highest level in history.
The waters raced in, filling up the streets, swallowing up homes.
This is from a 100-foot break in the levee. This is what is pouring out right now. Flash flooding turned Cliff Cave Park into a watery grave. Approximately 200 people have been evacuated from their homes following an early morning levee break.
We basically became part of the Mississippi River here.
We're going to be making sandbags all night, and they're going to be putting them out on the levee.
A lot of them people haven't met. People, they're great. They come out of nowhere just to help.
Illinois American's Alton treatment plant was surrounded by water, and the supply could be cut off. Customers started flooding the facility to help sandbag.
The Great Mississippi and Missouri Rivers Flood of 1993. Even if you didn't live in the area back then, it's likely you saw TV coverage or read it in the paper anywhere in the country. 7 months of seemingly endless water covering parts of 9 states and an estimated 400,000 square miles. 50 people died. Thousands were evacuated, some for months. Navigation on the Mississippi and Missouri rivers was closed in early July, resulting in an estimated loss of $2 million per day of commerce in 1993 dollars. An unprecedented combination of all-time crests, levee failures, area impacted, and length of time. Almost 150 major rivers and tributaries were affected. One of the most significant and damaging natural disasters in the history of the United States. But how did it happen? Heavy precipitation in 1992 increased soil moisture and raised reservoir levels in the Missouri and upper Mississippi River basins. This pattern continued through the winter of 1992 and 93. In the spring of 93, persistent storms pounded the same areas and saturated the soil. By June, the continuing rainfall could not be absorbed by the saturated soil and ran off into streams and rivers. The stage was set for a disaster. In July, more heavy rain soaked Iowa, and the runoff added to the near record levels that were already being reported along the Mississippi. On July 20th, a new record high stage of 47 feet was reached in St. Louis. Heavy rains continued from the Dakotas to Kansas the rest of the month, and the Missouri River reached new record crests all the way to St. Charles. When that record flow along the Missouri reached the already flooded waters of the Mississippi just a few miles north of St. Louis, it pushed a new all-time record crest on August 1st of 49.47 feet. That's almost 20 feet above flood stage. A levee failure in Columbia, Illinois flooded 47,000 acres of land, including the towns of Valmeyer and Fultz. On August 3rd, the Corps of Engineers made a controversial decision. They broke through the Mississippi levee, allowing the floodwater to drain back into the river, saving historic areas downstream to St. Genevieve. Most of the town of Valmeyer was moved 400 feet higher onto a bluff. With climate change and expectations of more extreme flooding, many towns along the river are looking at Valmeyer as a model. At its peak, the flow rate of the Mississippi at St. Louis was over 1 million cubic feet per second. That's enough to fill the old Busch Stadium in 60 seconds. On October 7th, the river level at St. Louis dropped below flood stage for the first time in 103 days.
There are so many dramatic videos and images from the flood of 1993. And if you want to share yours, email us, share@kmov.com. When the First Alert Weather Summer Special returns, we put on the gardening gloves and help you get that yard looking good for summer. Before we head to the break, let's dive into some more weather trivia, and it's all about humidity. And that's an important factor during the summer. High humidity can make it so uncomfortable. But what's the best way to judge how humid it is? Is it the dew point or relative humidity? We'll have the answer after the break.
Corey, one of my favorite things about St. Louis is that each neighborhood has its own feel, it has its own flavor. This spot happens to be one of my favorites in St. Louis. Let's get inside and we'll get a little taste of my St. Louis.
But you come in and it's just people from all walks of life, college students and our families. I think one of my favorite things about St. Louis is it's a good melting pot, and being able to find, no matter where you're from, somewhere that tastes like home. It gives you a space in St. Louis to feel like this is your St. Louis.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you, what is the best way to judge humidity, the dew point or relative humidity? The dew point is the best way to keep track of humidity. The dew point is absolute, not relative. So higher dew points mean higher humidity. It's that simple. But relative humidity depends on temperature. As an example, let's say it's a 70-degree dew point day, which is miserable. And let's say the air temperature is 100 degrees. That would produce a relative humidity of only 38%. Sounds low, right? Just look to the dew point and you'll always get the best gauge on how humid it is. If you missed out on spring planting, it's not too late. While many vegetables like the cooler temperatures, some use the summer heat to thrive. First Alert meteorologist Kristen Cornett takes us to the experts to find out what you can get in the ground right now.
Hopefully we have most of our plants in the ground at this time. All of our perennials and shrubs and trees are in. If you haven't planted any of those plants yet, you're waiting for the fall.
Chelsea tells me that anything you're planting right now will be annuals.
If you're looking for edibles, this is a great time to sow some more seeds, such as corn or beans or cucumbers and squash.
Plants are loving the heat as the St. Louis temperatures climb. They're really active right now in their growth stage. This means you should be watering them a lot more than you would any other time of the year.
If it's a new planting, if it's a new perennial, if it's a new shrub, you're going to want to make sure you're keeping that well watered. I would suggest at least 3 times a week. If it's annuals, they're probably going to need a little more water or vegetables even, because they're not going to be able to hold and retain as much water as some of your perennials and shrubs.
With regard to house plants, you may love them and choose to keep a couple inside, but now is the time they really want to grow.
I would suggest bringing some houseplants out. Maybe you have a dappled shade underneath an umbrella on your patio, bring a couple out there. But most importantly, you want to acclimate them to go outside. Go ahead and fertilize them with some slow release fertilizer around the base and water that in.
It's also time to think about pruning and deadheading.
The rule of thumb for any shrubs and perennials, anytime that it is done spent flowering, it's time to prune it back.
It's about making them look nice and tidy, but also sometimes they rebloom.
Your annuals may need deadheaded at the same time, so a lot of your geraniums, you'll start seeing brown shoots, and you'll prune those off by just snapping them at the base when they're ready.
And of course, don't forget about weeding.
Now is the time to focus on making sure you get all the weeds out, because if you get them out now, it's going to be much less of a problem this summer. So pull out all those weeds that you can. Make sure that you keep everything as clean as possible and well mulched and well watered, and you're going to have a successful gardening season.
At the Missouri Botanical Garden, Kristen Cornett, News 4.
When we return, I'll have the First Alert weather outlook and break down what to expect for this summer. Before we head to the break, let's do one more trivia question. Summer heat can get extreme in St. Louis, but what is the hottest temperature on record in St. Louis? Is it 127, 125, 115, or 112 degrees? We'll have the answer right after the break.
Three, 2, 1, here's the open.
From KMOV Channel 4, this is your First Alert Weather Ride Home Forecast.
Hello, Blues fans. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Tempe!
Ride Home Forecast when you're headed out of Enterprise Center, hopefully with the Blues win. Enjoy the game and let's go Blues!
Love me some Tempe.
Wait.
Tempe?
Hey, I bleed blue.
Attaboy, Temp.
Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you what was the hottest temperature on record in St. Louis. The answer, 115 degrees. It was July 14th, 1954, and according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, some streets buckled and caved in on that day. Most people didn't have air conditioning, and many slept outside in parks or backyards. The summer months of June, July, and August in St. Louis are just hot and humid, right? Not always. June actually has the third most tornadoes in our region. Tornado numbers dwindle in July and especially in August, though we know they can and do still occur from time to time. And flooding can happen in the summer too. Heavy rains in 1993 spurred record flooding. We never want to see that again on the Mississippi. And derechos can fire up in the summer. That's a large and long-lasting line of storms with damaging winds. The July 19, 2006 storm that walloped Busch Stadium with severe winds during a game and caused power outages for over 500,000 customers in the St. Louis area was a derecho. Obviously, our summer weather can vary from wild and stormy to scorching hot. And one thing you'll hear about this summer is a developing El Nino. But El Nino impacts are more noticeable during the winter, not so much during the summer. So what can we expect this summer? Well, last June was the 15th hottest on record, and we hit 100 on June 13th. Only 3 other days on record in St. Louis have hit 100 degrees earlier. This June, I don't expect it to get that hot that quick. But overall, I expect a warmer than normal month. We averaged 10 90-degree plus days in June, but I would expect more. And while rainfall should be near normal, June is our 3rd wettest month on average, so expect some summertime downpours. July is our hottest month typically, and last July was the 17th hottest on record. But it was also very wet due to one record-setting night. On the night of July 25th into the 26th, over 9 inches of rain hit St. Louis, and some spots, including parts of St. Charles County, received upwards of 11 inches in 8 hours. St. Louis set a new record for most daily rainfall for any day. This July, I expect near normal temperatures, but that still means plenty of heat, and 1 to 2 days should hit 100. And while I expect a wetter than normal month, it will be spread out in more rounds of rain and not all at once like last year. August 5th is the date our average high starts going down. Maybe that makes you feel like we made it through the summer, right? Not really. August is our 2nd hottest month on average. It also has the 2nd fewest tornadoes in the region, 2nd lowest only to January. This August, I expect a slightly hotter than normal month. Lots of days in the 90s, and hitting 100 a day or two is likely. But as far as rainfall, I expect a drier than normal pattern taking hold for August. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of News 4 at 6:30, our summer outlook. Stay connected to the First Alert Weather Team. Be sure to download the KMOV weather app to get updates for your area sent straight to your phone. And be sure to send us your weather videos and photos at share@kmov.com.